Good morning. Welcome to Mrs. Cog's classroom. Today we're in the kitchen tea dyeing and baking paper. Grab yourself a cup of coffee and I will include the steps that I go over here in the description box beneath the video. This is the regular paper that I use for my basic pages. The pages where you see my quotes printed or the black and white images that we call digi-stamps. Those are actually printed with regular copy paper with a laser printer, and I just used basic copy paper. This is 20-pound, 92 bright, run-of-the-mill paper, and I buy it by the case because I go through so many reams of it. But I do not specifically buy specialty paper for my regular pages such as this. What I end up printing is several piles for each journal. I generally tea dye for more than one journal at a time, and it's just regular white copy paper that I go into this entire endeavor with. So that's the regular paper. For the graph paper, I have a regular pad of this, and I generally use about 4 sheets, one in each signature for my journals. So I have these torn out, ready to tea dye. The what I call alphabet paper. We can't find this in the stores. My husband actually found it online at walmart.com. This is the only paper I would say that is described as fragile. You have to be very careful putting it in and out of the liquid tea. It's always the thing that I soak the least amount of time in the hot tea, and I'm very careful when I handle it. So it is the last in and the first out of the bucket of tea when I do my dyeing. And then my favorite go-to specialty paper is this pad of paper. Die Cuts with a View makes it. It's available at Joann's, and if you watch the sales, $12.99 a pad. Sometimes you can get it 50% off with a coupon, and I love it because they have different graph papers and ledger papers. They have assorted maps in them. They have scripted paper and some with printed dictionary pages and stuff, and other collage papers. The wonderful thing about this paper is that when I tea dye it, the other side, just because of the way it's made, takes the splotches and the character lines that we want to see in our aged look in our papers. So I like using that, and I try to put a page of that at least in each signature that I have. So these are the papers that we're going to tea dye today. Moving right along, I'm going to preheat my oven to 295. You can go as high as 310, but I find the further up in temperature you go, the more carefully you need to watch the paper. I'm not sure that everybody's oven and paper will react exactly the same as mine. We're all using different pans, we're at different elevations, so 295 is a safe temperature. I have 3 aluminum pans that are big enough to put 2 full-size sheets of paper on, so I can do 6 at a time. My husband was nice enough to find me another oven rack, so there's one for each tray. He's always looking to increase my efficiency. My theory is that he has me supported in all my endeavors here, so he can take early retirement. At least that's my running joke with him. So this is just a turkey roasting pan, an inexpensive one I picked up at the store. It's metal. I like the metal pan that I can set on the stove for the day while I'm doing this, and it fits nicely and lets me maneuver. The pages that we put in the bottom of this as we fill it up with tea are going to come out the darkest. I like to choose pages that I think I'm going to use on the outside of my signatures to go in the bottom because they come out the brownest, and it just seems to be eye-catching and make things pop a little more. So I have 3 tea bags in a cup, and I ran it under my Keurig machine. It's hot, it's steaming a little, but not so much that I'm going to need burn treatment when I stick my fingers into the tub. And what I'm going to do is continue to put this in the Keurig machine for more hot water, and every other time I do that I'm going to add another tea bag to make sure I keep the color dark and rich. So I have oven mitts that are permanently tea stained. These are my tea staining ones because I'm eventually going to grab these during the process with tea on my fingers, and there's just certain towels and little kitchen things now that I keep for tea dyeing. So with the water warm here, I have picked out the few pages that I want to use on the outside of my signatures. I'm just going to lay them in here upside down and then flip it over face up to make sure that I get tea on every bit of the paper. So again, face down and flip it over. And I am going to literally continue to fill this with paper and tea until I have an entire journal stacked in here soaking. The question that I get the most for the people that I've shown this to is, doesn't the paper fall apart? I don't know why, it's a mystery, but it doesn't. It holds up just fine. So just going to continue to fill this up. As far as how many tea bags I use, I want it hot and I want a dark color. So however many tea bags you feel it takes to get that effect is how many you want to use. When I have the family size tea bags, I generally use 2 at a time, but with the single sized here, I'm up to 4 in my cup now, and in a minute or 2 I'll add another one. So I'm going to continue to fill this with paper and hot tea from the Keurig, and I'll be back in a moment and we'll start the baking process. Okay, I am back. I have filled my turkey roaster with hot tea and all of the regular pages for the first journal. I've also removed the kitchen rug that's in front of my stove because I splatter, and got on my swaggy artsy sweatshirt that I can stain and get paint and Mod Podge and tea on. So what I'm going to do is, about halfway down in this pile, I'm going to grab some of these pages and put them on top. They've been soaking longer, they're a darker color, yellow, and just going to let a little drip off and lay them right on the tray and pop them in the oven. If you find your pages stick together, usually instead of pulling, if you put them back down in the tea, back down in the liquid, they'll kind of float apart and you don't have to tug them and worry about tearing. They're really quite durable. It's almost as if the tea adds some flexibility. The very first ones you put in the oven are going to take a bit longer because your cookie sheets aren't hot yet. And it's kind of neat, once they get hot from the first few batches and you pull them out, when you lay the pages on, they'll sizzle and you find this speckled and marbled effect comes up on some of your pages. Again, it depends on how deep in the tub that they were. So the first batch will take a little bit longer, like I said, about 5 minutes. Okay, continuing here, I have finished baking the paper from the first journal, and I have dumped my turkey roaster of tea, and I am about to fill it with fresh tea and starting the process of it being warm. Obviously it got cold before. So an empty bucket with new hot tea, and I'm going to put my specialty papers in and basically repeat the same thing that I did with my printer paper for these. The exception being the ABC paper, which is fragile, so I'll put that in last. So again with the dark color, the hot water. These papers, these die cuts with the view papers are 8 by 8, so I can fit 3 to a cookie sheet here. Slightly quicker and more efficient than full-size sheets of paper. One more minute on those. Add these until my tub is full of these papers. as you can see, the papers that were in the very bottom of the tub, which soaked for the longest, are a darker brown baked color around the edges. I don't know how well these shades will show up on the video. This was the very first piece of paper that I had put in the tub, and it's clearly more brown, a deeper, richer color than the others. I've taken these out and left them in order. So these were the first ones that I baked. You can see how they definitely came out tea-dyed, but as you go down the stack, the ones that soaked the longest became the deepest, prettiest colored baked brown. Just the way I like my Christmas cookies. Okay. And these are the first of the specialty papers coming out of the oven. You can hear how crinkly they are. And the back just comes out a good creamy, aged shade. Here we go. And these are the ABC papers that I'm so careful with. I have overlapped them to bake them quicker, but these are still a little damp. Let's stick these back in for just a minute. Graph paper. I don't know if you can tell from the video, it does change the texture and the edges are much browner. It doesn't have that bright, just out of the store look. And to me it looks like graph paper that is a couple decades old. Just has that aged look and feel to it. I do keep an aloe plant handy for little burns. I've never seriously hurt myself doing this, but at least once a project I end up touching the pan or getting some little minor crafting injury. So I keep the aloe on hand for that. Working on a few smaller things to tea dye while I wait for paper to bake. These composition notebooks you can pick up for 99 cents each. I've even seen a 3-pack of them for 99 cents if it's back to school season for the kids. And most of them are made like regular composition notebooks. They're actually sewn down the middle. So if you snip out the stitching that's in there, the pages will come right out. This would be so much easier if I had my reading glasses on. then what we have is pre-folded sheets to go into small inserts to make little notebooks to go inside your junk journals. And these tea dye up so nice. They're the lines don't wash off of these like some less expensive composition notebooks have. And so I've got out a few casserole dishes here, and nice dark tea, just like I did with the larger pages. I'm going to put these right in, and I will soak them and bake them the same way that I did the larger ones. And once they're baked and ironed like the other pages, it's easy as can be to trim them up to the exact size you want. So that is one idea. Another idea that's quite easy, these little string tags, you can get them at, I think Walmart has them for less than $2 a package, and there's 100 little tags in here. But recently I used so many, my husband found boxes of 1,000 at a time and got a good deal on them. But this couldn't be simpler. They come with a twisty tie around them, and I literally get the hot tea without even taking them apart yet. I put them all in to soak together. So, and strings and all. So as soon as the paper in the tub are finished, I'll then put these on sheets and bake them up as well. of the specialty papers are coming out. And I had a little extra room, so I had added some of the lined paper from those little composition notebooks. And all nice and crispy. Okay, those tags. Going to see if I can wrestle this twisty tie off. It's always so much easier when no one is looking. Brute strength force. Okay, so we have all these tags. And in general, if you're gentle, it just takes a minute, you can actually lay them out. It doesn't matter if the strings overlap, as long as the paper does not. it's tedious. But it's so nice to have these little pre-cut tags with the strings already on them to pop into your little small pockets and tuck spots in your journals and such. And they stamp so well. Okay, I have finished laying the tags out to be baked, and I gotta be honest with you, it reminds me of some kind of pastry or dessert or Christmas baking. I used to think it was very tedious and it was like work to lay out the tags on the trays, and it takes about 10 minutes, but there's 100 tags there and they'll be there ready for me whenever I need them for whichever project. So into the oven they go. I never walk away when I have the little stuff in the oven because it's so little and it dries up and cooks up so quickly. I just stay nearby. Well, I've moved back into the craft room where there's better light, and hopefully you can see some better shading and colors that have come out with the tea dyeing. So I have my iron set on the highest setting, and unless I'm ironing lace or trim or cheesecloth, something that needs to be on a more delicate setting of heat, I just use the highest setting for the papers. It's my opinion that the edges with the heat from first the hot tea and then the oven and now ironing it brings out the shades in it. I did want to mention that if you have printed onto your pages with a laser printer, that heat is what adheres the toner in the laser printing to the page. So if you put an iron straight onto your laser printing, it's going to smear and smudge on the bottom of your iron and on the page. So all I do is take a clean sheet of copy paper and flip this upside down. The few times I print on both sides, usually those are for recipe books, I put a sheet of paper both on the top and bottom so that anything that's laser printed will be against the white paper and it won't smear onto the bottom surface or on the page. When I do this, you'll see on the white a little bit of the black has come off. I've experimented with many journals, and when you put the next one face down, this does not come back off the white paper onto your page. So you don't have to worry unless your white sheet is completely blackened about the toner coming back onto the next page. And you can see the beautiful specks and blotches that looks like a natural aging that comes out with all the repeated heating. A few other quick things I wanted to mention is that you can, instead of ironing, put this under some heavy books. I find it doesn't get it quite as flat, and I prefer to iron it and then put it under books if I'm going to. Often I iron it and go right into making the journal, and it never sees the bottom of a stack of books to get flattened that way, but it does help compact it a bit more. So I wanted to give you some information about my upcoming Teachables course. My first course is going to be the complete Mrs. Cog Journal tutorial, and that would include tea dyeing the pages, maybe one of the most important parts of it, but I wanted to share this ahead of time, and I wanted to make sure that whether or not you're interested in taking the course, that this is available to everybody. The tea dyeing portion, it can be used in any project that you have with pages, whether or not you are making a journal in the style that I make them. I also have an upcoming video on what I've been doing with snippets, and I think it's a little bit different than what you might be expecting, so that'll be fun. And spring is coming, so I think that aside from having gnomes in the forest, we're going to find there's gnomes in the garden as well. Looking forward to doing a repeat of some more gnome themed journals in other locations. I think that's about all I have. I am just collecting these little tea dye tags for whenever I want to pull them out. They iron up quite well. So I've had a lot of fun doing this. I hope you guys learned something, and feel free to ask any questions. I will put the directions down below in the description box under the video, and thank you for joining me. I'll be back with you soon. Bye.